As I went into work today, I had a student come up to me looking a little bit distressed, and he had an issue, which I won't explain for obvious reasons, but he had two choices in that problem. And he had consulted the advice of others, friends, families, professors, me, and neither option seemed too unreasonable, right? He could have gone either way. So what I told him was two things that I think are really important, and then I want to get to the next story as well. One, first off, is to sleep on it. The best way to deal with issues, in my opinion, is first off to verbalize them to people that you trust, which he already did, and I think that was an excellent first step. And I've learned this in my own experience when it comes to going through breakups or trying to make really challenging decisions. Knowing whether or not I'm going down the right path comes from deciding to take the information that is just bubbling about in my head and putting it out there into the real world through either my voice or maybe writing it down. I'm sure, if you've been to therapy before, they'll tell you to write things down because it's another way of exercising those negative thoughts and feelings from your system. So the first thing was to share all of that or get it out there. And then the second thing was to sleep on it, because when we go through all of the emotions, when we've finally exhausted ourselves with thinking about the issue, we are now ready to level up into the next platform of decision making, which only happens after you've rested. And I want to emphasize this point because sleep is not valued enough, and I want to slowly over time change that perspective. There's lots of great podcasts out there and studies that discuss the importance and science behind getting good sleep. But if I can help whittle away at that, I'm not a scientist by any means, but I have found in my own anecdotal experience the value in it. So your decisions will improve by 10-fold, 100-fold. In fact, not just the decision, but your perception of the decision you've made. Because like I said before, there is no right or wrong answer. Which brings me to the other point I wanted to share, is that after really deliberating on it properly, you should understand that no matter what happens, you'll be fine. You'll get through it. If there is not an immediate threat of bodily harm or a chance that you will suddenly be out on the street living on your own, then you'll be fine, right? Most of the decisions we go through in day-to-day life are not that grievous. So with that understanding, you can make them with a clear head and without being as emotionally compromised. The second thing that happened, I had a student come and sit down next to me. I was working on a project at my desk. And I said, "Hey, what's going on? Why aren't you training with the rest of your squad?" And he said, "Well, things are kind of weird right now. I'll narrow it down to there were some communication issues between teammates." So I inquired further. I asked what the problem was, and I noticed there was a common thread of responses where a lot of the onus, a lot of the issues were blamed on other people. The problems arose not by my own actions, but by the actions of others, which in the case of the first example I started this video with and this current one, you don't always have control over these things. You have to think or reconceptualize problems from the framework of what you can actually do. Everything else beyond that is a waste of energy. I'll give you a perfect, simple example. If I'm late for work, if I'm driving to work, and this has happened plenty of times over the years, I've suffered from poor time management and a plethora of other things, right? If I'm getting stressed out on my way to work about being late, fearing the repercussions of what might happen, what good does that really do me? Does it cause me to get there faster? If anything, it causes me to be more likely to get into a car accident. So it doesn't serve any purpose. What would be constructive in that scenario would be if I considered the actions I'd committed leading up to me leaving the house. Because, once I'm in the car, the amount of time it takes me to get there it's going to be relatively the same. I might get lucky on a route and get there a little bit faster, or hey, I could get a phone call and say work got pushed back, but we're not banking on those things because, again, they're out of our control. What is in my control is every action leading up to when I left. So that is the section of time that we have to be really cognizant of. The parts where our impact was most obvious. Because we get wrapped up in the moment of failure and who is involved in that moment, and forget that sometimes it's not always about actually getting there on time. It's actually about your reaction to the situation. In the case of the student who came and sat with me, it wasn't about the teammates not being good teammates or whatever drama might have unfolded. It was about the reaction to whatever they did. Because at the end of the day, that is all he could have controlled. And to bring that a layer deeper, in my sharing of advice to him and to you, all I can do is share it. I have no control over whether or not he or you listen. So take that for what it is. I hope you have a fantastic evening, and I will talk to you in the next one.